Hello, friends, and welcome back to Fluent English, the podcast. I'm Sunny, and today I have a super special episode for you. This episode is about a day in the past. I'm gonna tell you what I did from the time I woke up till I went to bed. I'll be using slow English, simple sentences, and the past tense. This story is for folks just starting to learn, so take it easy, listen up, and try to picture the day with me. You can hit pause and repeat the sentences after I say them. I woke up early in the morning. The sun was creeping up real slow. And the first light hit my window. This wasn't 2025. It was the year 1900. This wasn't 2025. It was the year 1900. There was no smartphone next to my bed. No alarm clock to go off. I only woke up because the sunshine came right through the thin drapes. The bed was small and the quilt was heavy. It kept me warm all night, but the room was still super cold. I sat up slowly. My back felt stiff from the firm mattress. The room was quiet. No traffic noise, no sound of machines. Just the soft chirping of a bird outside my window. I splashed cold water on my face. There was no bathroom, no sink, no hot shower. On a little wooden table, there was a bowl full of water. I stuck my hands in. The water was icy, and it made me shiver. I splashed the water on my face. I felt more awake, but also way colder. Then I got dressed. I didn't wear jeans or a t-shirt. Those kinds of clothes didn't even exist in my world. I put on a simple white shirt. I pulled it over my head and buttoned it up. I put on my brown slacks. They were made of thick material. On my feet I wore heavy work boots. The clothes weren't new. They had little rips and old stitching. But they were tough. They kept me safe all day long. I opened the window. The air came in. It was fresh but chilly. The street outside was quiet. A horse went by. Pulling a wooden wagon loaded with veggies. There were no buses. It was the start of a brand new day back then. After I got dressed, I went into the kitchen. After I got dressed, I went into the kitchen. The kitchen was tiny. The kitchen was tiny. There was a wooden table in the middle. There was a wooden table in the middle. No refrigerator. No electric light. No refrigerator. No electric light. The only light came in from the window. The only light came in from the window. On the table there was bread, butter, and a bottle of milk. On the table there was bread, butter, and a bottle of milk. The bread was hard and brown. The bread was hard and brown. It was baked the day before. It was baked the day before. The butter was soft but a little salty. The butter was soft but a little salty. The milk was fresh. The milk was fresh. I sat down, and my family sat with me. I sat down, and my family sat with me. We didn't have plates for everyone. We didn't have plates for everyone. We shared. I cut off a piece of bread. We shared. I cut off a piece of bread. I spread butter on it with a little knife. I spread butter on it with a little knife. The butter melted slow because the bread was still a little warm. The butter melted slow because the bread was still a little warm. I drank a cup of milk. I drank a cup of milk. It was creamy and thick. It was creamy and thick. It tasted different from the milk today. It tasted different from the milk today. It was all natural with no sugar. It was all natural with no sugar. My dad ate quietly. My dad ate quietly. He had worked late the night before. He had worked late the night before. My little sister chewed her bread slowly. My little sister chewed her bread slowly. She looked at me and smiled. She looked at me and smiled. The room was plain, but we were together. The room was plain, but we were together. And that made it warm. And that made it warm. After breakfast, I left the house. After breakfast, I left the house. I put on my coat because the air was cold. I put on my coat because the air was cold. I said goodbye to my family and headed outside. I said goodbye to my family and headed outside. The street was made of stones. The street was made of stones. My boots made a loud sound with every step. My boots made a loud sound with every step. I didn't take a bus. I didn't drive a car. There were no buses. There were no cars. There were no buses. There were no cars. I walked. I always walked. I walked. I always walked. On the way, I saw a woman sweeping the front step with a broom. On the way, I saw a woman sweeping the front step with a broom. I saw a boy carrying a bucket of water from the well. I saw a boy carrying a bucket of water from the well. Two old guys sat on a bench. Two old guys sat on a bench. They were talking slowly. They were talking slowly. The morning air was fresh. The morning air was fresh. The smell of bread was coming from the bakery. The smell of bread was coming from the bakery. The smell of horses came from the street. The smell of horses came from the street. I walked for 30 minutes. I walked for 30 minutes. The factory was on the edge of town. The factory was on the edge of town. When I got there, I saw a bunch of other workers going inside. When I got there, I saw a bunch of other workers going inside. The factory was huge. The factory was huge. The walls were dark from smoke. The walls were dark from smoke. Inside, the machines were loud. Inside, the machines were loud. They made a constant, heavy noise. They made a constant, heavy noise. The air was thick. The air was thick. It was tough to breathe. It was tough to breathe. I worked with a bunch of other guys. I worked with a bunch of other guys. Some carried lumber. Some worked with metal. Some carried lumber. Some worked with metal. Some pushed carts from one side to the other. Some pushed carts from one side to the other. I carried crates and moved heavy pieces of wood. I carried crates and moved heavy pieces of wood. It was hard labor. It was hard labor. My hands got red. My hands got red. My shirt got dirty with dust. My shirt got dirty with dust. The foreman walked between us. The foreman walked between us. He wore a hat and carried a stick. He wore a hat and carried a stick. He didn't talk much. He didn't talk much. He checked everyone out carefully. He checked everyone out carefully. We worked for hours without stopping. We worked for hours without stopping. At noon, we had a short break. At noon, we had a short break. I sat on the floor. I sat on the floor. I ate bread and cheese from my pocket. Ate bread and cheese from my pocket. I drank water from a small metal cup. I drank water from a small metal cup. Then I stood up and got back to work. Then I stood up and got back to work. The hours were long. My back ached. The hours were long. My back ached. But I kept going 'cause I had no choice. But I kept going 'cause I had no choice. Back then, life was tough and work was a must. Back then, life was tough and work was a must. When the bell rang, we stopped. When the bell rang, we stopped. The day's work was done, so I left the factory. The day's work was done, so I left the factory. My clothes were filthy, my boots were heavy. My clothes were filthy, my boots were heavy. I walked home slowly. I walked home slowly. The sun was lower in the sky. Sun was lower in the sky. The air was cooler. The air was cooler. On the street, kids were playing with a ball made of rags. On the street, kids were playing with a ball made of rags. They were laughing and yelling. They were laughing and yelling. A group of women were washing clothes in buckets of water. A group of women were washing clothes in buckets of water. They scrubbed the clothes hard and chatted together. They scrubbed the clothes hard and chatted together. A guy was selling apples from a cart. A guy was selling apples from a cart. People were waiting in line to buy some. People were waiting in line to buy some. The smell of food was coming from open windows. The smell of food was coming from open windows. As I walked, I looked at the sky. As I walked, I looked at the sky. It changed from blue to orange and then red. It changed from blue to orange and then red. The colors were beautiful. The colors were beautiful. But they also told me that night was comin'. But they also told me that night was comin'. When I got home, the house looked warm. When I got home, the house looked warm. Smoke was coming from the chimney. Smoke was coming from the chimney. I opened the door and stepped inside. I opened the door and stepped inside. Inside the house, the fire was blazing in the fireplace. Inside the house, the fire was blazing in the fireplace. The room felt warm after the cold outside. The room felt warm after the cold outside. The table was all set for dinner. The table was all set for dinner. Dinner was simple. Dinner was simple. Soup, bread, and some veggies. The soup was hot. Soup, bread, and some veggies. The soup was hot. It smelled of onions and carrots. It smelled of onions and carrots. I dipped my bread into the soup, and I ate slowly. I dipped my bread into the soup, and I ate slowly. My family sat around the table. My family sat around the table. We talked about our day. My dad spoke about his work. We talked about our day. My dad spoke about his work. My mom spoke about the house. My mom spoke about the house. We laughed sometimes, even when we were tired. We laughed sometimes, even when we were tired. After dinner, we hung out together. After dinner, we hung out together. There was no TV, there was no radio. We just talked, we told stories. There was no TV, there was no radio. We just talked, we told stories. My dad told us about his childhood. My dad told us about his childhood. He used his hands to show us how he played in the fields. He used his hands to show us how he played in the fields way back when. My little sister played with he. Way back when. My little sister played with he. Later the house got quiet. Later the house got quiet. The fire got small. The fire got small. The candle got short. The candle got short. We all got sleepy. We all got sleepy. I went to my room. I went to my room. The bed was small and the blanket was heavy. The bed was small and the blanket was heavy. I pulled the blanket over me and I felt warm again. I pulled the blanket over me and I felt warm again. Outside, the night was silent. Outside, the night was silent. There were no cars, no machines, just the sound of the wind. There were no cars, no machines, just the sound of the wind. I closed my eyes. I closed my eyes. I thought about the day. I thought about the day. It wasn't an easy life, but it was a real one. It wasn't an easy life, but it was a real one. A day back in time. A day back in time. Lived with my family, food, and honest work. Lived with my family, food, and honest work. And then I fell asleep. And then I fell asleep. Okay. And that was my story, my day in the past. It wasn't fast and it wasn't modern. It was simple, tough, and quiet. Thanks, friends, for listening to Fluent English. I hope this story helped you practice the past tense. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. Peace out for now.